Hello, everyone. The reading today is from Philippians, and it's chapter 2, and it's verses 17 to 30. But even if I am being poured out like a drink offering on the sacrifice and service coming from your faith, I am glad and rejoice with all of you. So you should be glad and rejoice with me. I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you soon, that I also may be cheered when I receive news about you. I have no one else like him who will show genuine concern for your welfare. For everyone looks after themselves and their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. But you know that Timothy has proved himself, because as a son, with his father, he has served with me in the work of the gospel. I hope, therefore, to send him as soon as I see how things go with me. And I am confident in the Lord that I myself will come soon. But I think it is necessary to send back to you Epaphroditus, my brother, co-worker, and fellow soldier, who is also your messenger, whom you sent to take care of my needs. For he longs for all of you and is distressed because you heard he was ill. Indeed, he was ill and almost died. But God had mercy on him, and not on him only, but also on me, to spare me sorrow upon sorrow. Therefore, I am all the more eager to send him, so that when you see him again, you may be glad, and I may have less anxiety. So then, welcome him in the Lord with great joy, and honour people like him, because he almost died for the work of Christ. He risked his life to make up for the help you yourselves could not give me. This is the word of the Lord.
Good morning. It's Sunday again, and I'm here to share some thoughts from Philippians chapter 2, verses 17 to chapter 3, verse 1. Paul, the apostle, presents himself in this letter as the joyful servant, the optimistic prisoner, but also as the manager in the affair of God's kingdom. He's not concerned about the conditions in the prison, but thinking about the people of God in Philippi. The apostle was able to hope in the God of the Bible from his prison. His hope is in the Lord alone and not in his own strength. He's hoping to send Timothy to the church in Philippi for one good reason. The church will have news about him, and he may be cheered when he receives news about them. And I am confident in the Lord that I myself will come soon, says the apostle. We have an apostle who was physically in prison, but in his head, the spiritual business was flowing and God was at work. The prison couldn't stop Paul from planning to send Timothy to the church in Philippi once he knew the outcome of the trial. Let me ask you this question. Are there things that are going on in your life that preventing you to be fully involved in different activities of the church? The Apostle Paul in this passage reminds me of the lockdown. The church buildings were inaccessible, but the church itself never closed. The people of God were able to communicate with God and church ministers were able to be in contact with members of their congregations using technology. Praise be to God. So the Apostle Paul is in a similar situation. While in prison, he thinks about those in his spiritual care and wrote a letter to be sent to them. He wants to send someone to the church in Philippi. But that person must have a genuine concern for the welfare of Philippians. That person must look for the interests of Christ. That person must have proved himself. So Paul chose Timothy. But why Timothy? He says in verse 20 that he has no one else like Timothy. He wanted to recommend someone who will show genuine interest for the welfare of Philippians. Timothy, says Paul, has proved himself. He has been with Paul, learning and serving in the work of the gospel as a son with his father. As far as Paul was concerned, Timothy was up to the task. Others were looking for their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. Brother Paul is not sending Timothy to the church for the sake of sending. He thought carefully about who can be sent, and he chose Timothy. Timothy is the one who has worked according to verse 4, which says, each of you should look not only to your interest, but also to the interest of others. Friend, there is nothing wrong to look for your own interest, but there must be equal concern for the interest of others. Above all, we need to look for the interest of Christ, our Master. I pray that God will grant us His grace so we would be able, as a church, to look for the interest of Christ and the kingdom. And then Paul had a second person that he wanted to send back to the church in Philippi, Epaphroditus. Now, Epaphroditus was one of the church leaders in Philippi and was sent to Paul with a gift from the church and to assist the apostle. While serving with Paul, Epaphroditus became ill, and his friend in Philippi learned about his illness and became concerned about it. He also learned about their anxiety. The good news was that he was restored to health by the God of the Bible. Now, Epaphroditus would like to return back to the church in Philippi, and the Apostle Paul was happy to send him back to the church. Paul wanted to prepare the ground for a warm welcome for the man. He began by describing Epaphroditus in his relation to himself. For Paul, Epaphroditus was his brother because they were united in faith and belonging to the same spiritual family in which God is the Father. His co-worker because they were united in the work of the gospel. And finally, he was his fellow soldier because they were also united in the battle. In the work of the gospel, they had to face Roman mockers, worshippers of idol, evil spirit, and so on. So Paul wants the church to know that his relationship with Epaphroditus was a good one, and the church should welcome him with great joy. Paul encourages the church to honor men like Epaphroditus. When someone wants to become a minister within the Baptist Union, they must have a clear call. They must be tested. They train for at least 3 years, and then they are sent to a local church as a gift to that particular church. The church and the minister will have to work together in harmony and love for the interests of God's kingdom. The minister has been sent to that particular church because they were looking for one. And they have been praying and reflecting in order to have a great minister. Sometimes, when the church has finally found the minister they were looking for, they think it is over. They have been appointed and they can now do whatever they have been appointed for. The church forget to support their minister by interceding, encouraging, and honoring him. So the minister is almost left on his own. Nobody seems to think that he also deserves to be cared about and looked after. Friends, let me ask you, when was the last time you prayed for our minister? When was the last time you asked him questions about the pressure he has in the ministry? Let us honor those who have been sent to us by God to serve us. Let us care for them and their families. Elm Hill Baptist Church, I pray that we will not treat our minister as an employee, but as a gift that has been given to us by God. Therefore, we will hear God through him and support him as well as his family. May God bless his word. Amen.